All right, I think we've, no, I think we've got all members of council except Councillor Hughes at this point.
Well, it's 3 o'clock. Right
Okay.
here?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is. All right. Who's running the show? So this is not an official council meeting. There's no,
No.
I don't have to do an agenda or anything. Okay.
I think it's more of an information session. I mean, there's obviously some challenges currently, but Diane and her team here have got a bit of a PowerPoint together for you, and they've also summarized some of the recent public comments we've got. But perhaps we'll just let Diane jump right into it with the PowerPoint here.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Good afternoon, everyone. Mayor and Council, thank you so much for taking the time today so that we can provide some more information on LaChance Park. So
actually, let me interrupt you for a sec, Diane. Sure. I need to thank you because this is obviously very much very public and community questions. So you pulled this together super fast. So don't thank us. I'm thanking you. Okay.
Well, it is our pleasure to share with you today some information. I know there has been over the last few weeks, we've had some resident feedback into preserving and existing the bike trails at LaChance Park. And so today we wanted to share with you our plans for the park, which do incorporate community desire for natural bike trails and some small terrain features. And it also incorporates a safe and family-friendly experience for all of our neighborhood in Lacombe there. So we have a 20-minute presentation that we wanted to share with you about the park development. And then at which time we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have or provide any responses to some of the feedback we've received. And then if council desires, we're happy to take you on a walkabout at the park later on this week or early next week if you needed to have a better sort of understanding of the park and actually be on the site. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda Wild, and she is going to take you through a bit of a presentation. Thank you.
My apologies, I lost the unmute button somewhere.
You found it.
And is the PowerPoint slide visible for everyone?
Yes, it is.
Lovely, thank you. So today we're going to give you a brief history of the LaChance Park site, review our design process and the public engagement results that came from that design process, and provide you an overview of the final completed design. We'll provide current information on the current use of the site, including our recent risk assessments and some remediation action that we took on site. And finally, we're going to provide you some information on next steps for the Lacombe Park West Park Development Project and bike skills parks in general. We are more than happy to answer your questions at the end of the presentation, as Diane mentioned. So Lacombe Park West is part of the Lacombe Park Area Structure Plan that was completed in 2003. The Lacombe Park West Park Master Plan itself was completed in 2015. And I'm going to ask if you can see my cursor moving. Finally, we're going to provide you some information on it.
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. So phase 1 included La Fleur Park as well as Levesque Park, and those were constructed in 2016. And the phase 2 includes LaChance Park, which is right here, linear natural trails, as well as the legacy stormwater management facility enhancements and trail. The master plan process included 2 public engagements in June and September of 2014. And for LaChance Park in particular, the feedback focused on maintaining the existing natural vegetation, keeping the existing bike trails, adding more gravel trails, maintaining backyard residents for those that will back onto the park, and incorporating fitness stations into the final design. So the phase 2 project in particular includes LaChance Park, which is located here, the legacy stormwater management facility enhancements located down here, with the existing trails put in by the developer shown in blue, and the new trails as part of this project shown in green. The project scope was further expanded during detailed design to address existing active transportation gaps at Lacombe Lake Park, so along here from the parking lot and along the parking lot, as well as missing trail along McKinney Ave across the railway tracks leading into the Riverside neighborhood. So LaChance Park itself is a 1.57 hectare neighborhood park, obviously located in the Lacombe Park West development. It contains a large natural tree stand. The developer installed trails that you can see here and here, and naturalized grass areas. So all of the grass that you see along these edges here is all just naturalized plantings. So our Parks and Open Space Standards and Guidelines outlines the function of a neighborhood park, and they state that neighborhood parks are for unstructured, active and passive recreation opportunities for a variety of ages. They're not intended for single-use amenities, and they cannot sustainably manage large numbers of people on the site. As in LaChance Park, they're usually surrounded by neighborhood development, so residential, and they lack supporting services like washrooms, lighting, or on-site parking that would be typical for larger or heavier use facilities like bike parks. That being said, confirmed through aerial imagery and stories from our residents, we know that bike use in LaChance Park has happened for decades. The context of the site, however, has shifted substantially over that time. Originally, you can kind of see here in 2007, it was a farmer's field with this nice natural tree stand protected. You can see the roadway network starting to develop here in 2007, and then the housing coming in along the time period all the way to 2018. So the site was developer owned right up until fall of 2017, and then the city took ownership of it at that time. So detailed design process for phase 2 of the park master plan was started in 2018. And the purpose of this step of the park planning process is to confirm the technical feasibility of the concept design, refine the directions for amenities based on public support, evaluate the fiscal situation of the city at the time, and then deal with any emerging concerns that may have come up between the time of the park master plan and the detailed design project. So in April of 2018, an open house was held. We had 44 people attend in person. We had 43 additional online survey responses completed, and over 120 residents received direct mail outs as well as advertising on social media and city lights to make sure that residents were well informed of the design process and the design that was created. The feedback that we got for LaChance Park in particular was in favor of adding more family-friendly amenities. There's a strong focus on maintaining the trails that existed at that time, ensuring that the backyards that do back onto that site do keep as much privacy as possible, and maintaining the natural tree stands. If you'll bear with me for just a moment, I'm just going to show you the context of that site at the time. Let me see if this works. Are you able to see a overview shot of the park site on your screens? Oh, it's yelling at me.
No, Amanda, not yet.
Pardon me, let me see what I'm doing wrong. This works so much more smoothly in the tech rehearsal.
You did a tech rehearsal.
Working from home, you're never sure. Just gonna try that one more time, and then maybe give up.
I think in other instances, Amanda, other presentations, you have to close the PowerPoint and then open whatever you're trying to bring up. There you go.
Thank you. Can you see that now?
Yes, we can.
Lovely, thank you. So this is an aerial photo of the park site as it was in June of 2018. So right after detailed design was finished up. I'm just going to zoom in here a little bit. So you can see the developer installed trails. You can see the bike trails that move through the site. So a little bit here, a little bit around the outskirts. You can see the start of some digging and some development, especially right here for some more jump type features. But as you can see here, that it's really minimal development, some rutting out and erosion here, but there are no jumps per se on the site. So this is the context that public engagement was completed in 2018. Now let's see that. Do it again. There we are. There, sorry about that. So this worked a lot more smoothly when we tried it last time. So the final design for LaChance Park was modified further in 2020 to reflect the council motion in 2019 to remove the fitness stations. So right where the 6 was, there was a fitness station that's been removed from the design. The final design includes a nature-themed playground that you see labeled 5 here, a entryway that clears away some of the brush and provides better line of sight into the park, and a small concrete or asphalt trail system to connect to the playground. There is, sorry, and I should say, can you see my mouse moving? Where is it? It's giving me, it's yelling at me a little bit.
No, we can see your mouse.
Lovely, thank you. Sorry, it's yelling at me and I'm like, I don't know what you can see. The design incorporates the existing extensive bike network that existed at the time of the design. And it includes maintaining the bike train features that exist alongside the south side of the open meadow area. So those are largely centered right along this alignment here. Based on the completed detailed design, only one of the resident-made bike jumps will be lost. It's located about here. Those remaining bike train features will be properly graded for safety, but they will continue to enable kind of that more technical riding for younger and less skilled and kind of that less skilled mountain bikers throughout the site. So it's not a substantial change to the bike network. The terrain features, however, will not meet the needs of older bikers, those that are really technically skilled and can do kind of more of the bike jump type activities. It is really good to note on this design that the placement of the playground actually doesn't interfere with the bike network. It actually just extends use of the site to more users, including younger children and those who don't bike.
Sorry, Matt,
Oh,
just while you're on that, so that picture, there's no fitness equipment in that park anymore, right?
no, they've all been
Oh,
removed.
okay.
So it would have been where
Okay.
the 6 is. The 6 is
Okay.
now just a bench,
Okay, thank you.
little rest node.
Yeah, that was a council motion. That was yours, wasn't it, Natalie? Yeah, okay.
So that kind of brings us to where we are today. With the increase in residents, and especially as more youth have discovered the site, it was kind of a hidden gem previously. The use has really greatly intensified. As we've shown you over the last 2 years, in particular, there's been a shift from really small, casual bike loops and small bike terrain features to higher and larger bike jumps. These features have been created using soil dug from the site, leaving large borrow pits and tripping hazards behind. While the historic small but informal bike trails and terrain features are supported in the final design, LaChance Park itself is not well suited for a formal mountain bike skills park. The amount of open area especially is very, very limited. Adding properly designed and safe bike features would require moving large portions of the treed area. So we'd actually have to grub out a lot of the natural vegetation to safely design more advanced jumps. Bike parks are also usually dirt surfaced, and dust, along with the additional traffic and noise such an amenity would create, is likely to cause long-term issues for the neighboring houses. So over the last few weeks in particular, there's been more and more activity. The existing terrain features that were there in 2018 have been greatly added onto, creating unstable jumps with narrow tops. There are several large new holes created where soil and turf has been removed, leaving tripping hazards for both pedestrians and cyclists. And a new and extremely hazardous jump was created, which included a greater than a 6-foot drop from the back of the jump. And this isn't a great photo, but that's a tamper, which is 3.5, 4 feet tall. So from the top of the jump to the base there is better than a 6-foot drop. Along with this continual digging and building and on site, administration also noted a number of escalating concerns, including increased damage to the trees and natural vegetation on site, increased litter, including alcohol, broken glass, spray paint cans, and increased levels of usage with at times up to 40 bikers using the site at one time, which came with it a lack of appropriate social distancing. So along with the increased use, we also saw awareness of the upcoming park project increase over the last few weeks. In particular, a change.org petition was started as of May 17th with more than 1,900 signatures. Alongside the petition, several public inquiries through administration and council and immediate inquiry through the Gazette have been received by the city. We do find that the change.org platform makes it very difficult to assess whether the input received through that platform is really reflective of their community desire. The site doesn't limit signatories to our area or our region. It can be signed multiple times by the same person, just limited by the number of email addresses they have access to, and really only shares information that the person who instigated the petition chooses to share, which means some of the information shared through the petition isn't correct. That being said, we did go through all of the input received through these channels, and it has been centered around a few themes: a desire to keep the jumps and bike trails as they are, concerns around the financial expense of the park development at this time of fiscal restraint, and a general sentiment around free play and letting kids just play in the dirt. The written comments on change.org demonstrate a clear lack of knowledge about where the park even is, as well as clear misinformation about the proposed park design. Although reports sharing the design have been available online since 2018, the situation has really highlighted for administration the need for more readily clear available information and more frequent communication, especially in those kind of projects where we are delayed in construction. And it will definitely be taken as a lesson learned for future park development projects. While free play and keeping kids playing in the dirt was a common sentiment that we did receive in the input received, it's good intention, but it is the city's responsibility to manage the park spaces for all users and with safety as the priority. Damage to city property, destruction of our trees and natural vegetation, and building of structures that are not safe for public use should not be able to continue. So as a result of all of this, their feedback that we got from the public and the planned park project, we did assess the on-site risks that were presented to us. And as part of that, we consulted our legal and legislative services. Our legal advice is that the city could permit the use to continue. There was nothing restricting the city from doing so, but there was a lot of concern about how much risk was acceptable to the city. Legal suggested that the city assess what the likelihood of injury or loss was based on what was there, what the potential for harm was, what insurance the city had available, and how the consequences of the potential worst case scenario if a severe injury were to happen would be, versus what the potential benefit or impact of maintaining the space open and continuing to allow the use as it was would be. Alongside the liability and risk of injury, we did look at risk to the natural environment and to neighboring landowners, including the noise impacts with the increased use and the loss of privacy. So all of that, ultimately, administration felt that keeping the site open for as long as possible prior to construction was a priority, but there were high-risk areas that we absolutely had to address. The largest jump was completely removed and leveled. Two of the smaller jumps were lowered and smoothed to deal with the narrowing of the top space so kids weren't falling off the sides. Temporary signage was placed and the website was updated to provide clear information on appropriate use of the site and the upcoming park project. During the remediation work, we did get stopped on site by a number of parents as well as the youth, and they were quite happy to see that jump go. We did get reports of 2 children that were injured in the previous week on that jump. So there was a lot of positive feedback about the actions that we did take. And
any negative, Amanda, was there any negative feedback?
We haven't, other than the people that stopped us on site who are all quite positive, we have not heard back from any other public, positive or negative.
Okay, thank you.
So over the next few weeks, we will have to keep monitoring the site. They are continuing to dig, but not building new jumps, just a lot of digs and playing around in the dirt. So we will continue to monitor the site for safety hazards and make sure any issues that do come up can be managed quickly. So moving on to that, we do know that there is need for a bike skills park in St. Albert. The city did investigate the potential for a bike skills park, as I believe most people are aware, in 2012. But the lack of an appropriate site caused the project to ultimately be canceled. We continue to work with planning and our regional partners to identify an appropriate site with a focus right now on municipal reserve and our growth areas, potentially our annexation areas, potentially the Rohit lands, or joint ventures with regional partners. So we're looking at a number of different ways and places that we could enable this activity. If an appropriate site can be found, administration would like to use the recent highly successful skate park model for engaging. So we want to involve potential users of the site of all ages early into the design process, ensuring that the site functions to meet a variety of ages and abilities, including the older and more technically skilled riders. So making sure we're catching the breadth of mountain bike users and the breadth of the demand for a mountain bike skills park in St. Albert in the future. So back to the Chance Park though, as a result of all of the investigations, our discussions with residents, our review of the public feedback received during the design process, and where we are today, we do recommend continuing with the contract award for phase 2 of the Lacombe Park West Park Development Project. Site fitting will happen as needed to kind of, massage what has been created in the last couple of years and try and incorporate as much as possible into the design. But following through on the design as it is now really respects the feedback and the input of those residents who chose to participate during the park design process. We understand that no design meets the needs of all residents in a neighborhood at any given time, but it would be disingenuous to discard the process that was followed and the input of those who chose to participate during that process. So if we were to look at other options and delay, we are very much keenly aware of the need to manage all expenditures at this time. The project was carefully assessed during the research capital discussions and determined that it should move forward based on a number of factors. This neighborhood is very nearly built out, and unfinished park spaces in new neighborhoods creates inequity between established and new neighborhoods. So we have neighborhoods with ready access to fully developed park amenities, and our newer neighborhoods, because of the delays in the process, don't have access to that same space. So we feel that's an inequity that we should be solving. Without construction, any regular maintenance or garbage service on this site, it's easier for poor behaviors to continue to go unnoticed. So it would be difficult to manage continued digging and destruction of the site if we didn't move forward with the construction project. Any project delays are going to increase our costs related to construction just due to escalation and any impacts to tenders that happen if we delay it. As well, our active transportation gaps throughout the neighborhood and leading into Riverside will still remain gaps and won't be addressed in a timely manner. So where we're at right now is the project has been tendered, our bids haven't been evaluated, but the contract has not been awarded. So we have no legal risks if we were to delay the project or go back and think about it again. However, we do risk reputational damage with our contractors for pulling the project at this point. And we may have fewer bids or higher costs for future submissions if we were to have to look at a retender or a delay. So as I've already mentioned, if the project is delayed every year, things get more expensive. So the project, if it were to be done at a later year, would likely cost more. If the project ended up taking longer than a full season, we'd look at winter hoarding costs, remobilization costs, as well as continued costs and resources needed to monitor the site to manage those behaviors that we've been observing. Alongside our direct costs, we could potentially be looking at longer closures to the park site, which would reduce public access, which obviously wouldn't be a positive. So one thing that we could do based on the public feedback that we've been receiving is we could look at redesigning the park site. We do not recommend this because on top of discarding the previous input, it would require additional public engagement to make sure that all voices are heard. So that would have costs with it. A redesign at this stage would also imply a willingness to change our park design process, our park designs outside of our established public engagement processes, which does put future park projects at risk. Ultimately, and I think kind of the most important part of looking at a redesign is the need is for highly skilled technical older riders, and the need is for a mountain bike skills park, and this site really just can't accommodate that. So a redesign wouldn't necessarily or wouldn't be able to address those underlying needs. So although engagement with residents through the design process was adequate and we did follow due process, a strong campaign to inform the residents about the past engagement, the rationale for the reasoning for the design, and our plans for construction is clearly required. So what we're proposing is on-site signage, social media posts, an email to past participants in the public participation process, as well as a direct mail out to all residents that are adjacent to the park sites. With the intent of all of that, of providing information, so making sure we're clarifying any misinformation that is out there, and inviting opportunity to ask questions one-on-one with our staff. The design for LeChance Park incorporates community desire for that natural bike trail and small bike terrain features, while also incorporating that safe, family-friendly park experience for the entire neighborhood. So at this time, I would welcome questions from anyone. I'm just gonna perhaps stop sharing because I can't see anyone's face if I, oh, there we go.
Yeah, so if you stop sharing, that would help because then I can see everybody. Okay, questions? Go ahead, Jackie.
Thanks, Amanda and Diane. Really good information. And yeah, it kind of puts us all in a tough spot with the way the engagement and the petitions and everything are going. When you had that first engagement where you said, I think 40 people showed up for an engagement and then 43 sent in written surveys or whatever. Do you know if those people were the same people or were they additional? Or would you know that?
We can certainly go back and look. We do have a register of those who attended and then those who asked for feedback. I'm not sure how much information is available, but we can certainly go back and look.
And so I guess from a public engagement point of view, from 2018, are you satisfied that that was a decent number of people that showed up to provide input?
I would suggest that it would be in line with kind of our expectations. The neighborhood wasn't fully built out at that time. It still has a few lots close to the park site that aren't occupied. And I think that as a neighborhood park, our focus is quite small and it's supposed to serve the residents close by. So I believe that's probably adequate. You'd always want more. We did mail out to 120 people to invite them to participate, but you know, those that chose to participate.
Yeah. And I understand what you're saying. I guess I wonder how many new people are now in the neighborhood that would have, you know, it wasn't top of mind at the time for them. And they wish that they had had an opportunity to say something. But I also think that what the kids are doing there is lots of fun for them, but it's certainly not a community park. It's not for the toddlers up to the teens and the families. It seems to be very focused within a, you know, that end of elementary through junior high school. So I don't think that's any good for anybody either. So I appreciate what the city's going to do. I guess in my ideal world, I wish there could be this presentation and I see it's being recorded out there for people to see, to understand what the complications are and why we need to sort of move forward with an idea that what we're hearing them say is we're not shutting them out. We understand it's important, but there's complications to just changing it and costs as well. So I think that's got to be in our messaging. So just a comment, but really well done. Thank you.
Yeah, that was part of the decision to have this workshop, Councillor Hanson, was so we could get this presentation to educate council, but also educate the public a little bit too. And we're live streaming it.
Yeah, this is live streamed on YouTube. So workshops, they're considered public then.
Yeah, but I've already shared it on Twitter and my Facebook page. So I saw Councillor Broadhead's hand go up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the reality of it is that the park is really not large enough for a traditional bike skills park, short of ripping down all the trees. Did I get that right?
That's correct. In 2013, when they were refining the site criteria for Mountain Bike Skills Park, they needed a site that was either 3 acres or 1.2 hectares. So to reach that, it would basically clear out all the trees on that site.
So fair enough. What's been interesting, at least in light of what we heard today, is that there's definitely a need for a bike skills park in our community. The problem is finding a site to do that. And the interesting thing, at least initially, when all of this petitions and movement of the local residents, is that, you know, it sounded like we found a spot where the entire community could rally around and take this space and make it into an actual bike skills park. The implications of that are significant, however, right? Because the minute this idea of a bike skills park came out, we started seeing people showing up from Edmonton, right? So,
what does Ken always say? Unintended consequences.
Unintended consequences. Yeah, that's a great comment. And so I don't know. So just a follow-on question, maybe for you, Mr. Scoble, is there any, what happened to the dollars that were set aside for the Bike Skills Park initially? Is that still in a reserve fund, or has that been turned back into the general Parks and Rec, you know,
I'm not sure unless Diane knows. We'd have to talk to.
I feel
the
like we
CFO.
canceled it, which would have gone back to capital, I think.
You're correct. It was $200,000 at one time that was set aside. And I believe when we came forward and said we just didn't have any parcel of land at this time, we returned it to our capital reserves at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, I had feared that occurred, quite honestly. And now we've got some rumors of sort of ad hoc bike skills development happening in another side of the city. So I'm just wondering how we do we want to resurrect the idea of searching for a bike skills site? Or do we bite the bullet and say, okay, this community actually wants it, and we're going to take all the trees down and build a bike skills park?
Is that a question specifically for us, Councillor Broadhead?
Well, so that's what's going through my head here,
Okay.
right? Because if we don't do anything here, then we're going to have something that we're going to have to put the kibosh on in another part of the city. And if it doesn't work there, they're going to go somewhere else.
So a couple points here is one, of course, this isn't a council meeting, so you can't give any direction. So there would have to be a notice of motion made. Like right now, this is an approved project. Council's approved it. It's going
Yeah.
ahead.
Right.
So the only way that we can stop that is there needs to be a notice of motion made on June 1st. You know, otherwise, or I shouldn't say otherwise, but if you wanted to bring a project back on the table, we could put a charter together for that for budget time to put 200 grand in or something to look for another site within the city. But I guess to reemphasize at this point, we're going ahead unless we get formal direction otherwise, which can't be given here today.
Right. That's okay. That's okay. I think, Wes, we've got an opportunity in front of us with Range Road 260. You know, what a perfect site for a bike skills park on the landfill. And so we can ask, I'm seeing Natalie wanting to ask a question. So I'll go to Natalie and then I'll talk to Dan.
You know what, I just wanted to say exactly what you said there, Mayor Herron,
Okay.
that, you know, Councilor Broadhead, let's sit down and work on a motion together once those lands are sorted out, because I think that would be a great location.
Yeah. So question Diane a little bit about Range Road 260 and the process to build a rec center, our next big community amenities. Public participation to get input on what people want to see at that site. Is that happening? When is it happening? How is it happening?
I can start off, and then I think maybe Kevin or Carrie will want to pipe in as well. So as you know, we're doing the offsite servicing right now to the site. And then I guess we're looking for council's direction in terms of how we move forward with the next piece.
Okay.
But as we move forward with recreation facility development, public engagement is always front and center and foremost. We do need to get engagement from the community in terms of what facilities and amenities they would like to see built and in what time frame. To your point that you've all brought up, that land potentially has some good merit for a bike skills park because of it being a landfill, and there are some limitations to what you can do on that site. So it is a potential as we move forward. But I do think public engagement, you know, of course, is the first step. But Kevin, do you want to add to that?
No, I think you did a good job, Diane. I guess the only comment I would make is, of course, you know, the BMX track is on reclaimed land, so you could, you know, similar concept, right? And that is a good use of land that we would have trouble doing other sorts of things on. So.
I saw Ray and then Ken, but just before I move away from this, Natalie and Wes, I think if you guys were to put forward a motion to say in the planning of the rec center on Range Road 260, incorporate a bike skills park. That's direction, right? So going to Ray.
I'd love to chat with you about that. Anybody on council, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's just, my comment was, it seems like there's this desperate desire for one, and people are willing to do whatever it takes, right?
Yeah. And what Councillor Broadhead was referring to, for people who are watching live, is we've had an email about some kids makeshifting a new bike skills park over in Riverside, and then I've got another one with some kids in Kingswood. So there definitely is a need, and it's not just for the kids; the adults love it too. Okay, I'm going to Ray now, and then I'm going to Ken.
Yeah, just a question. What is the status of the existing contract again?
So we've closed the tenders and the bids have been evaluated, but we were just waiting from today to award the contract.
Okay, so the contract has not been awarded.
Not yet.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Perfect. All right, Ken.
Actually, well, your last comment in relation to the desire that of these parks popping up kind of naturally fits into where I was going to go, and it always speaks to the conflict that you're going to have. I mean, this was developed for years. Certainly, in some of the correspondence I've had with residents, they've said that this has always been something, even going back to when they were kids. You know, they were moving out to the west. But then as development has caught up, we're going to always have this conflict. And one of the things, and what I like about the recommendation that's in the presentation, and again, I'll add my kudos, that was very well done. And I really am going to direct residents here, because once I have provided any resident that's reached out to me directly with inquiries, and when I've shared the information provided by administration, they all go, "Oh, I didn't understand. Oh, now I see the dangers. Oh, now I see some of the challenges. No, I don't want that there." Matter of fact, one of the residents who lives very close to the park and was a proponent of it didn't have even a clear understanding of what some of the actual ramifications was. And so I had also started to notice that it was becoming quite the party place on weekends. So, I mean, this is just natural kind of, you know, people will find it. They as you've said, Councillor Broadhead, they've identified that, hey, this is a great opportunity and we're going to go out and we're going to do this on our own, but it's a conflict. So I think this is a great presentation, but I also take your point about maybe a more of a formalized bike skill park. We've got the community amenities coming on for future discussion. We've got lots of free land that is still in negotiations from Rohit. There's all sorts of opportunities. There's your backyard. This could end up anywhere, right? So anyways, those are just my comments. I really like the presentation, and I support the recommendation.
Okay, here's my thoughts. And I don't know how difficult this would be. First of all, I'm wondering about the potential to remove the playground, because it's been pointed out many times that there is a couple of playgrounds, and playgrounds serve the 10 and under crowd within very short walking distance. And so that would, very much like Natalie's motion during budget, to take out the workout equipment, save us some money. And we are looking to save some money right now. I don't know what that playground cost is. It's probably not a big one. But
Yeah.
from going with the conversations of some of the school groups that build playgrounds under 200,000. Carrie, you have just speak, Carrie.
Okay, thank you, Worship. One of the things we need to consider too is that now that we have closed the contract, anytime that we negotiate with a preferred vendor prior to signing, we're kind of held to what they're going to do for costs. And so what they may say is, well, to remove the playground, well, they may be honest and just say, great, we'll take the hit of $100,000 or $200,000 off the top. But they also could say, oh, well, to remove the playground, they might only give us $5,000 credit to do it.
Okay.
And so we're kind of held to that. And so that would make us go into negotiations and having to have another decision on, do we want to remove it or not remove it, or do we then go into a retender, which would delay things, and then that would damage our reputation and stuff. So just to be aware, any changes we do, we have to kind of negotiate with a preferred vendor before.
Yeah, but we don't have a preferred vendor though, because we haven't awarded it, right?
But we haven't awarded, but we have closed.
Okay.
And so we can't go back with an addendum now. We have to kind of pick a vendor to negotiate with. Because what I'm actually, a little bit more tricky.
Yeah, okay, and I appreciate that, and I've never done that from your position, but what I'm trying to do is actually change scope a little bit and take out the playground and hire a professional bike skills designer, not to build a big bike skills park, but just to make sure that some of the some of the structures that have been built by the kids are safe and designed appropriately so that they can be used by all levels of bikers. And I honestly see this huge opportunity to put a sign up there and says on June 1st, we want everyone to come to the park, and I'm talking to kids, and give us your input on what you want to see. And just like we did with the bikes or with the skateboard park, it was great public involvement from the youth in the bikes skateboard park. And I know it's a bit of a shift in direction, but I'm not talking about a full 180. I'm just talking about a slight change, using some of the feedback that we're getting from the petition, getting from the kids, getting from the parents, even with this little bit of slight change, we might get some residents out saying absolutely no bloody way. And because I was there, and there was a woman walking her dog through the park, and she was a little older than I am, and she was not happy with these kids riding through there because she didn't feel safe. So we don't have a good, wholesome idea of the neighborhood sense that if they want to make a change. And Amanda said it really well. We have to respect the 44 people who did take their time to give input. But that doesn't mean we have to completely ignore what's happening today. So I'm just trying to take what we know, add a little bit from today, maybe scope change, no price change, and go from there. I might delay this by a month. Or is it
So
more?
what we can do, sorry, Amanda, and you
No, go ahead.
can correct me if I'm wrong here, is that we can start having those negotiations and see if we can come in at the same price with some changes, and then basically go back and have a bit of engagement there, just to see where. But if it is going to be significant and to the scope or the cost of the project, then we'd have to come back to council.
Yeah.
Okay. So Amanda, you can please jump in there if there's.
And that's just my idea. I need to hear from the rest of these faces on the screen.
Yeah, I did want to highlight that from what they have built, there's only one kind of, and I'm calling them bike terrain features because, you know, they're more bumps than trying to hit air kind of stuff.
Mhm.
There's only one that has to be lost, and that's actually because it faces into, the jump faces into another jump.
Okay.
So it's not safe. But the playground isn't, to put in, we'd get maybe one other kind of run of terrain features. So maybe another one or two, because of the space that we have without starting to cut down those natural tree
And
stands.
that would be
It'd
awesome.
be a
I
very
think that-
minimal
I think that would be a
gain.
nice compromise, and the cost of the playground would maybe pay for the professionally designed terrain. That's a good word, because we don't want jumps. You know, just those wooden bridges or whatever they have that they can ride over in during a loop, right? And any other thoughts, guys, or do you just want to go as is? Go ahead, Natalie.
I mean, kind of like Mr. Scobell was saying, we need a motion to a council meeting to change scope. My preference would be to go with the current plan and just leave, you know, what we're able to leave in there. Certainly, I'm one of those parents that I'm glad that my kids have access to places where they're able to take risks, and that you know, we unfortunately don't have to be kind of bubble wrapped in a way that the municipality has to kind of consider liability. So I mean, that area has been in use by teenagers in St. Albert since I was a teenager in St. Albert. So, and it's been developed since then, which is it's too bad. I'm glad that some of it can be left alone in that area, so that the older youth still do have some place to go locally and play, like, because they don't have much opportunity in St. Albert to actually get outside, and that's really, really missing in St. Albert.
Councillor Hanson.
Thanks. You know, I see where you're going with this, Mayor. And, you know, Amanda's saying that we can sort of save some of the structures around some biking jumps, or I don't know what they are, humps. But I think one of the things that, because the area is so much more developed now, it's a lovely place to walk. And I just don't want to discourage people who want to be out there walking because it's all bikers. So I think that the current plan allows for more of a community park rather than focusing on bike skills. I think the idea of the west side 260 doing something right is a great idea. But I guess from my point of view, we've had the public engagement. The place has been developed out. We want it to be inviting for everybody. And I think that the current project that's on the go does that. So I don't think I would be prepared to put a motion forward for a scope change at this point.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Hughes.
I think I agree with you, Mayor Hearn, about the playground. If the playground isn't, these little tiny tot lots are not really that widely used. If you have a more substantial playground, it draws a lot more children to it. I really have yet to see the tot lots being used. And so unless this is like a more substantial playground, I can see the value in putting that money to better use to something else. So when we get these things, we don't really know what the size is of what we're doing. So if administration wants to tell me otherwise and tell me it's a more substantial one, it's hard to tell from the aerial shots. But if it's just a tiny playground, I think that your arguments about how there's other ones that are nearby might do better. And I think we'd be better off to serve the community having larger structures instead of having lots of tiny ones with like one slide and a small climbing area. Like the children get bored with that in like under 10 minutes. So it takes you longer to walk there than it does for them to play on it. It's what I found when I had my children that use those tiny tot lots, and you don't tend to go back to them. So is this playground larger, like what you'd see in Atwood Park, or are we looking at one that's small?
It's a little hard to quantify, and I'm sorry, I should have found better examples. So we have a very large playground nearby in Lafleur. It is across Lacombe Drive, which is a major barrier to smaller kids. It's about 500 meters away from this site and across a major road. That's a very large neighborhood park playground, but this is going to be substantially more than you'd see. It's medium size. It's just awful of an answer to give, but it's larger than some of our little, what we would traditionally call tot lot playgrounds, but not as big as the one that's in Lafleur.
How big are we looking? Like, what's it going to have on it? You must know that by now. What's going to be in it?
So we did receive the bids and the proposed playground designs, and if we were to move forward, we'd have to negotiate a little bit with them to clarify and just work with them on the design based on the input that we received in the public participation. But it's, a climbing structure, probably a swing set or a disc swing or something like that. Some nature themed elements like crawl through tunnels and stepping logs and those types of things. So it's not just, one play structure and a slide. I think all of the designs that were submitted had at least 2 or 3 slides, multi-level play. So we asked for 5 elements of play: swing, jump, hang, climb, and I'm missing one of them.
So it sounds like similar size to Atwood. Would that be fair?
My apologies, I don't know Atwood very well.
Diane,
similar to Liberton would be my best reference, but Diane?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I would say Liberton or similar to Atwood. I think the element of the playground feature was so that as a family could come to the park, you could bike, you could swing, you could jump, you would have sort of a mixture of a variety of opportunities for a family to recreate and to play. So again, it was to, I think, complement the bike trails that are there and to provide family in various different components.
Okay, if it's similar to Atwood, I know that Atwood is fairly popular and is well used. So then there's actual value to doing it if it's about comparable sizes, that the kids have some variety and they don't just get bored in 2 seconds. Because I know there's some other ones in Aikenstiel that are really small and are never used. So, but if it's larger, then okay. And then I'm negotiable either way. I'm fine either way.
Councillor Watkins?
What did the public involvement say about the sports equipment, which we already removed, and the playground? Was that what they wanted in the park back then?
Yeah. So it actually changed when we look at the public engagement from the park master plan in 2015. There was very little indication of desire for play, but they really wanted the fitness stations. And we looked at the feedback from the 2018 engagement, and the focus, most people wanted more kind of family play elements, and we're pretty ambiguous on the fitness equipment.
Okay, so the people, as a result of the last public involvement, wanted the playground equipment in there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, anything else, guys? Seeing nothing. All right, why don't we see where this, go ahead, Councillor Henson.
Just in terms of the link to this recorded video, are we able to get that so that we can share it out?
Go to YouTube,
Yes, you will.
and you need to subscribe to the City of St. Albert YouTube page, and it's right there.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but it's on my Facebook if you want it.
Okay, I can share that too.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not seeing a big appetite to, go ahead, Councillor Hughes.
Is there a link to go to the YouTube page from our website? Because when I was just going through the agenda, because it's all online, and there's no links to video. So is there a statement that says go to this spot to look for our YouTube videos for all of
Maybe
them?
what we can do,
Yeah.
maybe what we'll do, council members, is that we've got some IT support on this, and Ledge, we'll email you a link after the meeting here or
Yeah.
something.
I think Sheen is talking about for all the meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the meetings. There's nothing on, it's just blank. So if you don't know to go to YouTube, there's nothing telling you to go to YouTube from our website. It just looks like we're not recording anymore.
Hmm.
It's like, unless I'm missing something, but there's no link on there, and I don't see any statement that says, please go to this location to look for any of our archive videos as of this date. There's nothing there, and it would be helpful to the public if they wanted to see it.
So Renee, we've got Ledge on the call here too. Renee, can you take that as the takeaway and talk with the department there about what we can do about that?
Sorry, can you just repeat what you need me to do? I'm kind of standing in the background. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we're looking for a link from, you know, when it says the Watch City Council meetings and you have the archive, there's no link that says to go to YouTube to look for them. So if there was something that could redirect people on the fact that we are still recording them and that this is where you'd go to find them, it would be helpful, because there's nothing when you go to that archive page that I've noticed, unless I'm missing something, that shows where to find our videos.
Okay, yeah, I can look after that.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Yeah, I think Councillor Hughes, what you're looking for is on the live page, but you're right that information should be duplicated on the archive page. It is there on the live page.
I just think that most people don't necessarily watch it live, right? So sometimes, whatever, if it's not in the archives, people don't know. So it'd be helpful. That's all. Thanks.
Just so you know, as we're doing this broadcasting live, a resident is messaging. So people are watching. She's happy with the current plan. I love the public engagement that COVID is bringing forward. It's awesome. All right. Okay. I'm happy. I think, you know, part of my goal was to get this presentation out in the public. Just to propose some ideas of scope change. I'm not seeing a huge appetite. I think I'm okay if we maybe push forward sooner rather than later on getting a bike skills park as part of the plans for the Rohit lands and make that really public and get that people excited about that. That's probably a good compromise. And this La Chance Park has given us that kick in the butt to make sure that happens. Yeah, and I'll wait for something from Wes.
Or Natalie.
Okay, is there anything else, guys? No, and so again, Diane, Kevin, Carrie, Amanda, for pulling this together really kind of last minute. This is again another of the huge advantages of some of these Zoom platforms, and we will make sure the public sees this, and I think it'll bring a better understanding of the unintended consequences that would come if we continue to publicize this place as a big community amenity rather than a neighborhood amenity, and the traffic and all the problems that might come with it. All right. I can't say meeting adjourned because there's not a meeting, so. So we'll just wave. Bye. Thanks, guys.
Bye.